All right, we are live. Bucky, you do the intro. You're good at it.
Awesome. Thanks for the invite again, Dallas. And always love seeing you. I'm in Rochester, Minnesota tonight. It is 9 p.m. Central. I'm sitting in one of the cool coffee shops. We have a cool local coffee shop that's now off of Broadway. It's called Cafe Steam. And I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the conversation and looking forward to it.
Cool. I'm Dallas McLaughlin. I am in Tempe, Arizona, and actually know the coffee shop you're at, Bucky. It's a cool place. I went there last time I was in town.
Yeah.
Actually, the problem I always had, not problem, but when I was in Rochester, it always seemed like everything was really cookie cutter. That was actually a cool place. It stood out as being unique to Rochester.
And the thing I'll say is it's neat to see our community just changing in general. We have a new restaurant coming online. We just had a new co-working space opening up. So we're seeing a lot of new things come to this very med city with the Mayo Clinic. So it's really cool to see the changes. This was really the start of it, this coffee shop. And then what's happening around it is just awesome.
Cool. So I don't have anything on the agenda. Again, we just kind of wing this. But one thing I saw that's big, and I know you're the guy to ask, is the new Instagram stories. I see that came out. It's basically like talking about copy and pasting. It's Snapchat, but Instagram. And I want to know how you're using it, and because I'm not really in that position anymore where I get to dive in and do that stuff. So tell me how you're using it and how it needs to be used by businesses.
Well, the first thing I would say is I'm a Snapchat lover. Like I was not on Snapchat at all until I saw Gary Vaynerchuk talk about how he was using it in business. And I would say 6 months ago, I fell in love with it, and I've grown a community of real estate agents that are around the country that I would now consider friends thanks to Snapchat and meeting them and having conversations with them. We have a thing called the Snap Pack where we have a Google Hangout every once in a while and talk about forward-thinking marketing. And Instagram's update pisses me off. I'm not even going to kid you. Like, I can't manage 2 stories. I don't want to. I think that's the biggest thing. So some of the people that are in the Snap Pack, they are doing it. I'm trying to be the renegade. So I say I'm boycotting Instagram storytelling via video. I'm just doing photos. But at the same point, I'm testing it. And I do feel personally that Snapchat's in trouble because there's more people on Instagram. And the thing with Instagram is you can find your community much easier. It was tough to find the people I found and now follow on Snapchat. It was really through Twitter and seeing the hashtags they were using and asking if they had a Snapchat. Flip. Right now on Instagram, I can go in and meet people that have similar interests that I do. I can check out their story. At the same point, I think the amount of stories that you have access to is overwhelming. And because it's overwhelming, I'm not liking it. But I do recognize they have a lot of attention and I probably need to be there. Now, one thing I have enjoyed in just storytelling via pictures is that I post a picture to my Instagram feed like we all know. And then I say, today on my Instagram story, I'm going to be featuring local businesses that are restaurants. So I kind of started this like introduction to a series, and then I take photos of them throughout the day. And it's interesting to see how my views increase because I'm using my Instagram feed to push to my story, and also hashtags within that post of the Instagram feed, if you will. So there are some ways to definitely build your following, build your community. But I'm definitely diehard at Snapchat. Filters still are awesome. It's much easier to post, but I'm sure Instagram and Facebook is flipping working on it. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. I do feel Snapchat's probably in trouble because of the power of Facebook and the brains behind Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, my first, it got dark all of a sudden. My first feeling when I opened it, because I'm not actively using it, but I always, I'm out in there checking it out, seeing what the advantages are. Because I was on Snapchat back when I was doing the clothing company, so I don't know what that would have been, like 2000 maybe. It was, especially when it first came out, it was really unintuitive. There's still no way to build a following that I'm aware of other than using other apps to pull people through Snapchat. It seems like Instagram gives businesses a chance to go directly to the media and kind of jumpstart their own following and kind of build that from the ground versus starting at zero. It felt like when I was doing Snapchat at the start, I was sending all these snaps, and I had no feedback of if anybody seeing these things. It's basically like I was just yelling into the Grand Canyon and not getting anything back. So I think that's an interesting thing for people that have been wanting to do Snapchat but haven't jumped in yet. Now they're like, well, Instagram, I understand Instagram, and I can get immediate feedback.
Yeah, and I think Snapchat, is still in its infancies, whether we want to say it or not, and the land grab opportunity still exists. So it only makes sense that Instagram jumps in ASAP. The one thing I do like is I have an Instagram for my father's burger joint, Snappy Stop, and then I have an Instagram for RGI, our real estate firm, and all of people that I want to give access to that Instagram can also share to the story. So think about that as a real estate firm. I could tell a story on RGI's Instagram. My friends and advisors could tell a story, and because we're collaborating on the story, and it's very easy to collaborate on the story, it makes our brand and story a lot more interesting on Instagram than it ever could be on Snapchat. And Snapchat, I didn't share. You do a takeover, but you don't share in a story, and there's the ability to collaborate in Instagram on brands because you can share in the logins. They haven't eliminated that. That's cool. I like that.
Yeah, the other upside I see is, again, it's only probably a week old by now. So having Facebook and having Instagram, the way those two are going to play together probably really soon, it's going to be really interesting, where Snapchat's just out there on its own. So we're going to have to see how Instagram and Facebook tie those together.
So I did a Snapchat about Instagram. This gets super confusing. So I did a Snapchat about Instagram. And one thing I shared is just wait until in our text messages, for example, which our phone providers are providing the text messages, and we can simply snap through our text messages. We could simply see someone's story through our address book. Like, that's the direction I see Facebook heading, is they're really trying to take over the way you communicate, where, oh, I don't text people. I just send them a message. Like, that's what they want us to do, is send them a message through Messenger. I don't email them. I just send them a message through Facebook. I don't check in with them. I just check their story on my phone through my address book. Like, that's the direction I think Facebook is trying to head, to be the mother of all. Whether or not they can accomplish that, we'll see. But obviously now I think people see why they bought Instagram more. Like, my simple mind sees why Instagram was such an important play for Facebook.
They tried to buy Snapchat for $3 billion, and everybody was like, that's absurd. Why would you do that? Snapchat turned them down. And so now Facebook's been fighting that ever since. And then meanwhile, Snapchat's with billions and billions on top of the $3 Facebook offered.
My favorite gift from the last week was in the Facebook movie when the guy comes over and is like yelling at Mark. And someone said, this is what Snapchat's CEO just did to Mark. And it's the guy in the movie walking over and be like, what are you doing? Like, you're totally taking my idea, There's Mark in his hoodie in the movie just sitting there like, what? So.
Yeah, I've stopped questioning what Facebook has going on. I remember when they bought Oculus Rift for whatever it was, at least $1 billion. That's the leader in virtual reality. Everybody's like, virtual reality? Who cares? What are they seeing here? And now it's 3 years later, and that's the next huge deal. It's about to happen. So they know what they're doing.
Absolutely. One thing I came across in this last week, and it's now something that's just blown my mind as far as a brand and what they're doing. I don't love necessarily all the messages they're sharing, but the way they're sharing their messages has gained a lot of attention. I ran across them through a podcast, Dollar Beard Club. Have you seen Dollar Beard Club at all, Dallas?
I don't know enough about it, but I do know, I've read an article about how the guy started the company, so I know of the company, but I haven't paid too much attention to it.
So I'm going to pull up, here it is, episode 56 of a podcast. We could probably put it in the comments. And how Dollar Beard Club generated 100 million video views. I'm going to look at in how long, a short period of time. In this podcast, he says we started with $800 put towards video, and we made an epic video that got a lot of views, and they just continually dumped all their money into video. And now if you go to their Facebook page, so in 13 months, they got 100 million views on their videos. 13 months. Frick.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, I can imagine that they hit right at the time that Facebook was rolling out video. And I remember, I've been playing with this stuff for 4 or 5 years. Facebook's algorithm, there's always little breakpoints in it, where if you find that breakpoint, all of your stuff just hits critical mass. I used to just repeat that with 507, if you remember that. And critical mass in that sense was locally, so not critical mass like they're talking about. But there's always little points where for a long time it was if you spend $4.99 in ad spend, you see amazing results. As soon as you spend $5, the results die. So it's all math. So somewhere in the algorithm is little breakpoints. And at the start of that, when that video rolled out, Facebook said, hey, if you post a video right now, we're going to put it at the top of everybody's feeds for so long. So we want to own video. We're going to go after all the YouTube creators. So anybody that put out a video on that time was just shoved page views because Facebook wanted them to go out there and say, hey, we put this video on Facebook and I got all these views. Everybody else come do the same thing. Again, Facebook had this strategy ahead of time to take their competitors and just eat them for lunch.
So what that's telling me is when Facebook rolls out something new, for example, Facebook Live, which I have not, I've done one just for the fun of it. But when they roll that out, get on it if you're a brand, if you're a business, because there could be a great reward if you get on it and double down on it. And I've heard a lot of residential real estate agents, my friends, the Snap Pack, that are using Facebook Live. Shout out to Neil Mathling in Madison, Wisconsin. He's got like 3 different episodes for his Facebook Live, and he's freaking killing it. He is gaining, I mean, it's just cool to see his views and his climb and everything, because he got on Snapchat when Gary Vee said, get on Snapchat. And then when Gary Vee said, do Facebook Live, he did Facebook Live, and he's seen the rewards in his business because of it. My favorite one is he sits down with his daughter, who's very funny and young, and they just do back and forth, and it's really entertaining. That's like his fun episode. He definitely has educational episodes too.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something to be said about first mover advantage on any of this stuff. I've always been preaching that you don't need to sit around and read blog posts and look at charts, graphs, where views are going. Just do it. There's something there. You got it. Even if it doesn't work, whatever iteration comes next, it might be the one that works, and you've got an advantage because you were in the first iteration.
So the one thing I'm finding, I'm becoming more of a practitioner, as Gary Vee would say, and I'm using his words. And because I'm a practitioner, it's making this whole social internet content sharing easier. Once I get down to somewhat of a routine and understanding what my gig is on there, I see me putting ad dollars against some of my content that I think is worth putting ad dollars against. I've always struggled with that because I'm always like, well, should I do a post and just try it? Like if I have the understanding, and this goes back to the content is, the creative is the variable, I think is what Gary had said. And I'm getting it now. I guess I didn't get that in the past, where the market decides if you have good creative, if you tell good stories, if you have good stuff, if you see return on that, well, then it probably makes sense to put ad dollars against it. And I'm going to get to a point, I hope, in my business that I do so, but not just do it to do it. I think a lot of people try that. Do it and make it calculated. Small businesses, I feel like myself, we just do it to see what happens, where we never focus on the creative. Snapchat and Instagram now is allowing me to be more creative and really focus on the storytelling. Yeah. So what's your thoughts to that comment?
Yeah, so one of the things that I run up against, hang on, let me turn a light on while I talk about this. All right, maybe that helps. So one of the things I always run up against working in an agency setting is most of our budgets when our clients sign on are usually for a year. We take Excel sheets and money. We know where all the money's going to go every week throughout the entire year. What that doesn't ever leave room for, that frustrates me to no end, is when something's working, put money behind it to get that extra push that it needs, take advantage of whatever is working right now. Even if they did do that, when I put these big elaborate plans together for a year, and in January, let's say, I don't know what app's going to come out in June, what algorithm changed in August, and I can't predict that stuff. But when that happens, there's always this process of, hey, this post is doing really well. Let's call the client. Let's send them a proposal for this amount of money. Let's get signed up on it, and then let's do it. And then it's 3 days later, and it's like, well, it doesn't work like that. I've been trying to do, and I've seen done in the past when I'm contracting with other agencies, is we set aside all the money for the year that we fixed that we know has to go there. So we have basically a monthly slush fund. This much money is variable. Whatever we see, we're basically stock pickers. If something's happening, let's go. If it doesn't work, let's go back on it. Now, basically, how we're proposing our budgets is we say we're going to spend this much on digital. We don't yet know where it's going to go, but this much is allocated to digital. And our digital guy will figure it out. He figured it out on the fly, and that's basically how we're taking advantage over the national chains. Raining in Phoenix, which very often we can get creative behind, hey, it's a rainy day, push it out there, and none of our competitors can react that fast.
So real quick on my end, I don't know if it's happening on your end, but it's muffled. So I wonder how that's coming through. If you have a set of headphones, give it a shot. Otherwise, maybe just try a little bit closer. But it is a little muffled when you're talking. I guess what I got out of that is small businesses. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you a lot better. So small businesses need to get the creative down before they just start throwing money at advertising. And I think so many just dabble and they're like, well, I didn't really see a return, so I'm not really going to do it again, or maybe I'll try it again in a month. Like, get the creative down. So get on a platform where you can be creative. Not everybody can do every channel. And like, my creative outlet is Snapchat. Because I'm good at Snapchat, I feel I can share to other places. Now that I'm becoming decent at other places because of Snapchat, I then now know what works and I can put ad dollars against it. So that's awesome.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm curious. I put a thing out on Wave, which is another app. If you guys haven't heard of it, it allows you to do, I'm going to pull it up here. Anchor, sorry, it's not, you do waves. So you say a 2 minutes deal of what your question is or whatever the case may be. Anchor is the name of the app. And today I put one out. How do ad agencies charge? Do they say, I don't know, and I'm sure there's different ways, but do they say, okay, your spend is $1,000 for advertising and we're going to charge 6% on top of that? Like, how, I don't know what that structure is, and I'm curious how that works.
Everybody's a little bit different. You still hear me all right? I can't hear myself.
Yeah, I can hear you perfect.
So everybody's a little bit different. Our agency specifically, without getting into the actual numbers, there's traditional media buys, which are things like the TV, radio, billboards, and print. Those, since the placement has a fixed cost, let's say it's $3,000 to run a billboard for the month, that we'll do a media markup on top of that. So we'll mark up, we have a price, but the ballpark would be 15 to 30% on top of what that placement is. And that, the theory behind that, that's not what I do, but the theory behind that is that you're getting a better rate because you're going through us. We have the connections. We know how to negotiate those rates. We know the best placements. So that markup is for our expertise. It's our placement. As far as digital, that's a little bit different. If I were to do a pay-per-click campaign today for next month, and let's say it's a $10,000 ad spend, I have to kind of gauge ahead of time how much time that's going to take me to manage that account, from setup, the creative team making the graphics or whatever animations that need to happen. I'll gauge all of that ahead of time as best as I can based on my experience, and then I'll put an hour amount to that. I'm going to spend this much time throughout the month, either on a day-to-day basis or weekly or whatever it happens to be. I'll put an hour amount to that, and you'll pay our hourly rate for me to manage that account.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's the real difference is traditional media, you don't manage it. You just place it, it's done, so it's marked up. Digital media, I have to manage that every day, again, like a stockbroker. I have to go in there and look at what the bids are, what the competition's doing. I have to adjust our bids. So there's an ongoing management fee to that one, and reporting, obviously.
And how you determine the fee for management is based on the ad spend. Because if I'm going to spend $50,000 in advertising in 1 month is a lot different than $1,000, which means a lot more time dedicated to that $50,000.
Yes and no. When you're looking at it as those two extremes, 50,000 versus 1,000, yeah. But there's a lot of industries themselves that are way more expensive to do pay-per-click in, for example. So it might be the same amount of time, but the cost to play is much higher. So it does weigh into it, but it's not an exact measurement. That's why we can't just do the markup, because I can't just say, well, they're spending 10,000, I need to do this many hours. It really depends on what the market is. There's like restaurants, they'll be paying $3 to $5 a click, and lawyers will be paying $20 to $25 a click, but it's still the same amount of management time.
Are you making anything on, and you don't have to answer this for your firm, but do agencies make any money on the click as well? So if Facebook's going to charge in the restaurant industry in your area $1 for the click, is the agency also saying we're adding $1 on the click, or is it? I would imagine that wouldn't work, but I'm curious as to how that works.
So I've seen it both ways. I've seen people paid on performance. So kind of like what you're saying is for every so many clicks, or maybe it's conversions, or in some cases it's just impressions, you're going to pay us per impression, whatever amount. Maybe it's 10 cents per impression or something, and you serve 1 million impressions, it adds up quick. But another way to do that, say the question one more time. I got sidetracked for a second.
Do agencies mark up on the click? So if it's $1 in the restaurant industry, are you saying, yeah, but it's $2 if you have a student?
Okay.
Or are they saying, no, management is this and the clicks cost this?
Yeah, no, so I knew I had somewhere I was going with that. So what I have seen before on the other end is when it's not disclosed that there's a markup on the spend. I've actually got myself stuck in that situation unknowingly before, where I'm working as hard as I can to get a low cost per click. And I'm sending the report to the agency like, hey, this is the work I'm doing, cost per click's here. But then at the end of it, when they factor in their management fee on top of the ad spend, they're not separating those two costs. All of a sudden, my cost per click that I worked so hard to get low is now twice as much because they're marking up the total ad spend. So when you look at the amount spent and the amount of clicks, put those together, you see that you're spending way more than what the actual report is. I worked at a place that did that, and it took about 3 to 4 months for me to see the final report. And I was like, holy crap, like that makes me look like I'm really bad at my job. I'm like, you need to line item what the actual ad spend is versus what their management fee is, so I don't look so bad. Because what ends up happening is their contract comes up for renewal, they take our reports they've gotten for the last year, they go to all the other agencies and say, hey, these are the reports we're getting, can you do better? And they're like, yeah, those are awful numbers. Of course we can do better, but no one knows it's because the markup's hidden in the cost per click. So it's you really have to be transparent about what you're doing.
Interesting. Okay. Do you find it overwhelming with all the ad outlets now, with Instagram and probably Snapchat, with buying filters and Facebook, or is that the norm in the ad agency? There's always been all those outlets. It's just now in a digital world.
It's pretty rare that a client's going to come in and use all of them. There's going to be clients that come in and we look at them and say, whether it's budget constraints or it's just outlets, things aren't right for them. Maybe if you are an accountant, LinkedIn's awesome for you, but Twitter and Instagram aren't. And there's going to be places that are like fun pizza restaurants where Instagram, very picture heavy, pizza's going to do well. That makes sense, but you're not going to sell pizzas on LinkedIn. So we're always trying to figure out, okay, there's this much money. Usually how it goes is we work within a budget. So someone says, hey, our budget for the year is $500,000. Where do you spend it? Then we say, okay, well, if it's $500,000, you can do this. You probably can't do that national TV spend. So we kind of have to work it in depending on what's best for the client.
And I don't think a lot of real estate agents, commercial, residential, are able to hire agencies. But if they ever get to that scale, I imagine it makes your job a lot more easier if I'm good at creative as well. Meaning not only are we applying your team at creative, but if I'm good at creative, that just helps.
Yeah, there's several different types of clients, but two very big different types of clients are the clients who come to us and say, you're the expert, you put it together, you tell us what we need to do. Which in one sense can be freeing, but it's also it can be really difficult too, because you don't know. I mean, they've got something in their mind and they're not telling it to you. So you put all this time together, putting a strategy and creative together, then they're like, no, that's not it. So if there's no direction, it's really hard to get to where you need to be. And then on the other hand, there's the clients that come in and say, hey, I need this, 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 and this done. It needs to look like this. When people see it, they need to do this. And a lot of times that's awesome because I mean, great, like most of our job's done. Now let us do the execution. Let us work through the creative and all the stuff that we like to do. You just give us approval. But at the same time, those are the people that are like, I know exactly what I want and you're not giving it to me. So it kind of goes both ways.
And I think it also could say, this is what I do. How do we add some fuel to the fire? I mean, I don't know how to do what you do. So I need your help to become even more creative, even more strategic, even more just better at what I do. But so for the record, I guess what I want to say is our company is approximately 10 people. We can't afford at this point that I've seen, especially locally, and you know the talent locally, Dallas, there's not an ad agency in our city. We can't afford an ad agency. I would love to get our firm to a level that we can, but in the meantime, we need to be creating content as a company and as individuals, and doing the best that we can with that content. And if we ever get smart enough, and I don't feel that I'm smart enough now, to put ad dollars against the stuff we're creating, then that's even another next step closer to hiring an ad agency. But I think the thing I want to share on here is, if there's anybody listening going, I don't know how to do any of this and I'll never get an ad agency, I would tell you your goal should be to get an ad agency, or be an ad agency yourself. And where you can start is creating the content, because that's just time. That doesn't cost. You don't have to put any ads against putting on Snapchat, putting on Instagram, nothing. So start practicing. Start being a practitioner.
Yeah, I think over the last 5 years, 10 years, definitely the cost to entry for any of this stuff is now next to nothing. You can go on, what is it, Canva.com or something, and make a really good Instagram graphics. You can make really good infographics for Facebook. You can do all kinds of really creative stuff just through drag and drop editors. Same thing, the build your own website things 3 years ago, you couldn't pay me money to put a website on one of those things. Just not even 2 months ago, I was reading about one, and I was like, this has to be a joke. There's no way it works as good as they're saying. I loaded up expecting it. I might have told the story already, but I'm expecting it to just give me a mess out the back end once it's done. And it was really good. And I was like, holy crap. Like, there's something happening in between there. So it's really quickly the people, like if you're a web designer, you're in trouble. Even people in my position that don't have the other skill sets are in trouble, because pay-per-click's becoming more and more automated. It's just computers figuring out where to place your ads and when to place them. Creative people, I don't think they can ever be replaced. So it's just a matter of figuring out where you fit in and adopting those things that support your role rather than fighting them. I can't fight drag and drop web editors because that's what's convenient for everybody. That's what everybody wants. They don't want to pay some guy to build their website and then be chained to him forever.
Was that Squarespace that you built the website in?
This one was actually, it's really cool. I'll have to link it. It's Wix. It's Wix, which has been around forever, which I've always hated. But they have this new thing where it's artificial intelligence. So you go through a questionnaire that is like insanely in-depth about who you are, what your business is, who the people you're selling to are, everything. And then it's like, okay, your website's ready for you. And it delivers you a website with all of your copy, all the graphics that fit. If something's out of line, you just move it. But it does a really good job right out of the box. It's crazy.
So let me ask you this question and get your opinion. I am horrible at writing, and I recognize that blogging is a thing, and it could add value to my business. Is it cheesy? And I think people have different opinions, so I'm curious on your opinion. I can talk into my voice memo. I can talk now into Google, and I could talk out my blog post. It won't be pretty, but then I could get somebody that could spice it up a bit and then give them credit on the bottom of my blog post. Is that cheesy? Would people read that and then at the bottom say, oh, and credit given to blank for helping make this? It's like it is my writing, but it isn't my writing. What's your opinion on that?
No, I don't think that's cheesy at all. I think if you sit and worry about what's going to be cheesy, then you're not going to do anything. And then they don't have the opportunity to be cheesy and to get whatever you get out of it. But I would say the guys like Gary Vaynerchuk, I know for sure, is a ghostwriter for all of his stuff, because she was in the audience at South by Southwest with me, and he called her out. He said, "Hey, because he was releasing Ask Gary V book at South by Southwest." So he said, "Hey, she wrote the whole book for me. I just sat there and told her what I wanted to be, what I wanted in the book, and she made it happen." Same with all of my books. So it's no secret, and it shows him on his show when he does his things that show up as blog posts. It's just him talking into a camera, just like we are right now. Someone transcribes that to text, and then he does a proof through it and says, I said this weird, maybe change it, put this down here, this thought didn't come out right, change that. And then it goes up on the blog. So Gary Vaynerchuk's not sitting there writing blogs. Most of these guys aren't. But it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they're putting the content out for other people to consume and to get the value out of. It doesn't matter whose fingertips it comes out of.
All right. That being said, I got two that I'm going to post. And then we'll let the internet be the judge because the market decides.
Yeah, that's the beauty about the internet. I've been saying that back since I was doing music. with the internet, and my teachers back in the day, okay, so one of my teachers gave me this theory. Back in the day, when they would make music, they would have to go through the whole process of recording this, getting their album printed to either CD or cassette or tape even before that, mail it out to all these record executives, wait months, never hear back, and then they'd find out they sucked. The beauty is now with the internet, you can immediately record something, you can immediately put it out there, and immediately find out you suck. So it shortens that whole cycle, so you can iterate faster and faster and faster, and figure out where you suck less to get more important people and keep improving. It's just, I mean, I did a blog post years ago on Medium that the title of it was "I suck at writing, that's why I do it," and the whole blog post was about how I don't know anything about grammar, how I misuse all these words and apostrophes. And that's one of the most read blog posts I've ever written. So it's just weird. The ones I put all this time and effort into, usually no one ever reads it.
That's awesome. All right. Let's see. What other questions? I guess I'm getting closer and closer to having more of a strategy to my creative. So storytelling, I'm getting all right at. On the weekends, I want to schedule my posts for the week ahead, at least some of the weightlifting, because it's becoming overwhelming when you run Realty Growth and Snappy Stop and your own personal brand. And I need to schedule some of that. And then anything additional. I think the one that's easiest for me not to schedule is my personal brand. But the other ones I need to start scheduling. So I just share that because it's a good step forward in what I've been doing as far as social media, creative content, storytelling, things like that.
Yeah, one tool I just started using a couple months ago, which has been awesome, is Buffer. It's been around for a long time, but I think I tried it once years ago. It didn't work for me. I tried it again just a couple months ago, and it's been so cool. Like, you go in for the first thing you do when you're setting it up, you say, okay, Mondays I like these times, Tuesdays these times. You can take as much or as little control as you want. And basically, anytime I'm reading an article, which I'm always reading stuff online, it's so important to what I do. It's a little Chrome extension, so it's in my browser. I just click the Chrome button. It pre-populates the tweet, the Facebook post, the LinkedIn, whatever I want. You have the choice to change your text. You can provide your own thoughts, which I usually do. Then you just hit the buffer, and it adds it to your queue, which means the next time one of your times come around that you like, it'll shoot it out there for you. So I load up 30, 40 things at a time just through my natural reading. And then throughout weeks, they just roll out on this schedule. I don't even have to set the time or anything, just because I set the time a long time ago.
Interesting. One tool I came across here in the last week and a half is LastPass. Everybody has issues with your passwords. You can't deny it. And LastPass has helped provide a solution finally for me. It also has the Chrome extension, and yeah, it's helping. So I don't know what you use for your passwords, but LastPass is working awesome for me.
I'm probably the least secure person when it comes to passwords, unfortunately, especially for anybody watching this. I have great passwords. But yeah, I'm just the guy. I've had the same password since I was probably 14. I just did a deal where I hit a bunch of keys and wrote it down. And it's my password for almost everything. So that'll get me in trouble someday, but it hasn't yet.
So LastPass gives you the ability to change them, all this stuff. It's a whole suite. And I think it's like $12 for the year. So is it worth it? Yes. So go check that one out, LastPass.
Yeah, that actually brings up a good point. So one of our primary clients, or at least one of my primary clients at the agency, is this home security company, home and business security company. And that's like one of the messages we're always trying to get through in the messaging, is that security is always thought of as one of those things. It's like, it's reaction. Like when something happens, my house gets broken into, all of a sudden I need security for my home.
Right.
So it's trying to transition that to, you need it ahead of time, kind of like insurance, to be ready. Well, I guess it kind of is insurance, but to be ready ahead of time. You don't want to wait for that to happen, which I am with my passwords.
All right. Well, I know we don't want to keep these going on too long. I know you and I could keep talking until the sun behind you goes down. But what do we want to wrap it up with? I think maybe two things. I'll think of the first thing. First thing is, what is one interesting thing, funny thing, doesn't even have to be business related, in this last week that you saw?
Okay, so every Monday at the agency, again, I work at the James Agency in Scottsdale. Every Monday, so our agency lives and dies by its culture. It's one of the things that really separates us from everybody else. So every Monday morning at 9 a.m., we have our stand-up production meetings where we go over all the accounts, what work needs to be done, But before we get into the business, we always do what's called an icebreaker, where we have to do something completely outside of our comfort zone, kind of wakes us up on a Monday, gets us in the groove of things, and we get on with our day. But this Monday, we were assigned a very popular song, and we had to sing it out loud using only the words do's and da's. And everybody had to guess it, and you had to keep going until they guessed your song. So to give you an example, mine was, well, I guess I'll do it.
Yes, please.
It was do 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 do. It's Queen, Another One Bites the Dust. So you have to imagine 30 people in a room all having to go one by one, and there was some really, really good outcomes from that. There was people that were awful, and it was pretty good. It gets us into our week, though.
There you go. My funny thing, I guess Michael Phelps' face, if you've seen that blow up the internet, that is the best.
It's great. It's one of those things where I would have no reason to watch that. I'm never into swimming at all. I saw that, and then I read the story behind it, and I'm like, man, I hope he beats this guy. So I watched it last night. I was standing in front of the TV. I'm like, yeah, go cheering for him. And it was awesome.
Oh, and that just shows everyday life can turn into a viral moment. You never know. All right, what's your one thing? It doesn't, mine was come up with a funny thing. What do you got as a takeaway or final item?
You went funny, so let's go serious. Let's say if you're going to tell anybody who sees this to do one thing business related between today, what is today, Wednesday? And whenever we do this show next, which will probably be a week and a half or 2 weeks, you're going to do one thing between now and then to kind of set their career or build some momentum towards becoming a practitioner of social or digital or content or anything. What do they need to look at right now?
It's a tough question. I think it so depends on where that person is at, because I feel like it's such an individual question depending on the person. But so for people that aren't doing it, but they recognize it's important, get on to Snapchat, because no one will follow you in the beginning, and you can block them if you're afraid of people following you, but literally start doing it. If you're at where I'm at, I think you have to start getting strategic as far as you can't be just doing this for the fun of it. There's actually some strategy as to the time you are spending on it. How can you take it to the next level? And then if you're above me and you're actually in it, I guess I would ask the question, is it adding value? You got to check it. And is it really adding value to your bottom line, to your company, to yourself? So it's kind of a 3-prong answer, but hopefully that's, no matter where you're at in that cycle, that can be the response.
Cool.
How about you?
I guess since I had a second to think about it after I asked it, I will say, even in a point in time where I think websites are really quickly becoming outdated and a less valuable piece of the whole marketing puzzle because of apps and because of everything else going on, I think still right now today, everybody needs to have a website that acts as their home base. The way I always try to draw that analogy is, if you think in military terms, there's home base, and that's just your military base, and there's your outposts, which are things like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat. All of your outposts can be taken away from you at any time. Twitter could shut down tomorrow. They actually are in trouble. Something new might pop up. Competitors might show up and ruin your Facebook page because theirs is way better. Something might happen. They can be burnt to the ground. Your home base you own. Nothing can happen to that. You own your website. You control that message. Nobody can ever come take that from you. So step up your website game. Gives you a ton of marketing opportunities. So start there and then work on your outposts and getting people to your website.
Awesome. Well, let's sign out. Be sure to link up the things in the comments. I will do the podcast. That was awesome. Buffer's important. LastPass. Any of those other things, let's link them up. And then feedback is always peeps. If you got anything, if you got any questions, if you want us to talk about a certain thing, if you want to jump on the Google Hangout, please do. You can follow me on Snapchat. It's Bucky Beeman. I'll link that up on the bottom.
Yeah, we got to find some people to get on the show. It'll be fun to see what everybody else is doing. I actually I blend in with this background now.
That's awesome. Thanks, Dallas.
All right, it's good talking to you, Bucky.
See ya.